Welcome to Showcase Broadcast Studios. I am Michael Wardy, your host here at Showcase Broadcast Studios, and thank you for joining. I know people are going to be jumping in and rolling in as we go through this discussion. I'm so excited for a couple of reasons today. Number one, today is the first broadcast in my new studio, and as you can see behind me, I'll move. We have the banner, and the studio is still being worked on. It's going to take a little bit longer than I thought. Of course, I started this back last year, and delays. Anyway, we're getting there. I'm also very excited to bring in Imran Syed, who is the head of our energy practice here at Source Advisors. Where for almost 40 years, coming up on 40 years, we have been working with CPAs and their clients on various tax incentive programs, such as energy incentives, which are more recent, obviously, inventory tax planning, cost segregation, and the research and development tax credit. Today's focus is on the 179D, 45L, and the Inflation Reduction Act. So just to get started, Imran, thank you for joining.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Imran, and I know we're going to try and get through a lot of information in a short period of time. Give us a background of the energy incentives. 179D, which is the energy incentive it's a deduction for energy efficiencies within the lighting, HVAC, and the building envelope. 45L, which is a tax credit, used to be, in 2022, going back, $2,000, but a lot of changes. Give us a background overview of that.
Sure, yeah. So, as you rightly mentioned, both Section 179D and 45L were originally part of the Energy Policy Act. So they've been here since 2006. Section 179D deals with commercial buildings and high-rise residential. As of the end of 2022, the deduction is up to a maximum of $1.80 a square foot. Now, if you apply the inflation adjustment, it's about $1.88 for the year 2022. 45L, again, it's just a counterpart of 179D. It applies to higher three-story residential buildings, single-family homes, apartments, townhomes. So it's a tax credit. So it's $2,000 per unit, which is basically a lot of incentive for both single-family tract builders and multifamily home builders.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for the background. Now we're going to segment each of these incentives. Which do you want to start out with, 45L or 179D? You get to decide.
Let's talk about 179D.
179D. I actually like that one. And Imran, you've been at Source Advisors since, is it 2011?
2010.
I was close. And have really taken on the charge of understanding and doing the due diligence and the proper documentation, support, site visits, and everything like that. Mm-hmm. For 179D, I know I gave a brief overview. Walk us through what 179D is and the availability, and then can we tie in the updates that have taken place with regards to the Inflation Reduction Act?
Sure, and I'll try to summarize this because this can be a pretty long conversation. Now, again, 179D until the end of 2022 is still under the old rules. Your building components, which are your building envelope, your HVAC, and your interior lighting, these are the three energy efficient components that we look at. If the building shows 50% savings compared to the ASHRAE 90.1 standard, you are eligible for $1.80 per square foot deduction. Now, if you're not able to qualify the building under the fully qualifying deduction, you can still look at partial qualifications for each of these systems, which is about 60 cents a square foot. Now, the rules, like I mentioned, are still the same. However, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there are substantial changes. The deduction could be anywhere from 50 cents a square foot to $5 per square foot. Now, this depends on your energy cost savings and whether you comply with your prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. So there are certain changes with the deduction, as well as your qualifying criteria. So you'll probably see some changes with that. Now, back in the day, we could have projects qualify under the partial qualifying systems. You could qualify systems individually. Moving forward, starting from 2023, that has been eliminated. So what they've done is replace that with what's called an alternative deduction for retrofit projects. Again, it could the deduction range would still be 50 cents to $5 a square foot, but your qualifying methodology would be different.
And what? 1 second, I would just want to make sure I understand this. 50 cents to $5 per square foot deduction.
Correct.
Okay. I have a 100,000 square foot building. I qualify. I can get an additional, doing the math properly, $500,000.
Up to a maximum, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that's basically what's changing with the 179D thing. Now, if you want to go into a little bit more details of why someone could get a 50 cents instead of a $5, it all depends on, you'll have to look at it two ways. One is for new construction and addition projects, right? If a project gets 25% savings compared to the ASHRAE 90.1 standard, now the 90.1 standard could be 90.1 2007 standards or the most recent standard, which was in place no later than 4 years from the construction date, place in service date.
Okay.
It's a little confusing. I'll go through this. But the ASHRAE standard has to have a final determination from the Department of Energy and has to be affirmed by the Treasury in consultation with the Secretary of Energy. So again, moving targets, things will get clear moving forward, but looks like there's going to be a more recent ASHRAE 90.1 standard that we will have to compare the projects with. Now,
Okay.
For the
Keep going. I'm sorry.
for the new construction projects, if you have 25% savings and the taxpayer meets the prevailing wage and the apprenticeship requirements, they'll be eligible for $2.50 a square foot deduction. And that's a 25% savings. Now, with every increase in energy savings, your deduction increases until it reaches 50% savings, at which point you get $5 per square foot.
Okay. None of this sounds easy. So we took away, I remember the interim lighting rules where you would get 30 to 60 cents. That's all gone.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to jump into the Inflation Reduction Act because with the changes that took place, we at Source Advisors, I know we've got a lot of questions from CPAs, architectural firms that are asking about the changes that took place. I'm not going to say what they are. I'm going to let you jump in and talk about that because some major changes took place that is creating a lot of opportunity to continue to build and design for energy efficiency. Can you share that with us?
Right. Yeah. So apart from, the increase in tax deduction, and before I move on, I do want to mention, the $2.50 to the $5 range is for taxpayers complying with prevailing wages and the apprenticeship requirements. If they're not meeting those requirements, the deduction would be 50 cents for 25% savings and then $1 per square foot for 50% savings. So that's the reduction in your tax deduction.
Okay. So there's still something for them, regardless of what the other prevailing wages and apprenticeship. Okay. I'm with you.
And then, one major change, which, design firms are very excited about is for the longest time, if you remember, government projects or government entities were the only ones who could allocate that deduction to design firms, right? Starting from 2023, non-for-profit and other tax-exempt entities could do the same. So there's a larger pool for design firms to take the deduction for.
So pretty much now we're saying any entity can reassign that.
Non-for-profit entities, a good example could be hospitals that are non-for-profit, right?
Okay. Whereas before they couldn't.
They couldn't, yeah.
Okay. And this is on 2023 going forward. You can't go back and say, hey, Inflation Reduction Act, now we get it.
That's correct. Yeah. Starting from 2020.
Okay. Got it. Do you need, this is a loaded question, but I'll go ahead and ask it. Do you need somebody to come out and certify these properties?
Yeah. The process remains the same. It still has to be a registered professional engineer or an architect who has to certify these projects.
Okay.
So the process remains the same. One other change that see which could really impact retrofit projects. Now, if you remember, uh, under the old standards, you could basically qualify addition renovation projects using the same energy modeling guidelines. Now, with the retrofit projects moving forward, starting from 2023, uh, the building cannot be compared to an ASHRAE 90.1 standard. Rather, it is compared to the existing building's energy use index. So it's based on, I look at it, in three phases. When you look at a renovation project, you need a retrofit plan that has to be established before the construction begins.
Okay.
The retrofit plan basically looks at the energy conservation measures that the designer is providing in their specifications, what the savings could be, and if they could at least, at a minimum, achieve 25% savings. And you basically go through construction, and the implementation phase. And then 1 year after the construction has been completed, you basically have to check your actual energy consumption compared to what the baseline was, which is the existing buildings use, and then see what the savings would be. Now, based on the savings, your deduction amount would be determined.
So what you're referring to now is not compared to the baseline for ASHRAE standards, correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Now you're doing a pure energy efficiency based on what you used to have.
that is correct. On renovation projects.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really opens it up to a lot of older buildings, especially buildings like in Chicago, Detroit, New York, LA, where they've been around for a long time, old warehouses where they're changing our manufacturing facilities, where they're changing and retrofitting a lot of their components to update. That could be a significant savings as well.
It absolutely could be, although there are challenges just because the comparison is with existing buildings' energy use. So, so a lot of planning is required during the design phase to make sure that whatever conservation measures are being implemented would at least get them 25% savings.
Okay. When you say planning, is this planning with the design firm, the mechanical electrical and plumbing group, with consultants like us? Where does that planning that you're referring to, where's that coming in?
The way we would be involved is once the design firms have the documents ready, we'll have to look at what the scope of work is and do certain internal analysis to make sure that, whether it's the lighting system or a combination of lighting, HVAC, and envelope, is able to get them to 25% savings at a minimum. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is again projected savings that we would look at initially and then confirm that at the end of construction and then 1 year after the building's been placed into service.
Okay. So it's better to get groups like us involved earlier than
Okay.
after it's done. It makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Let's switch over to 45L because I know for me personally, I've had a lot of conversations with developers and builders on what's changed. It's pretty incredible, to put it lightly. It's shocking how the rules have changed and what the opportunity is. And Imran, let's walk through. I mean, let's just jump right into what the Inflation Reduction Act has brought for builders and developers.
Right. So if you remember, the 45L credit was $2,000 per unit, and that remains the same until the end of this year. So units that are leased or sold by the end of 2022 would still be eligible for $2,000 per unit under the old standard, which was 2006 IECC. That was our baseline standard. Moving forward, starting from 2023, Energy Star is the pathway for them to get the 45L credit. So now, I'll try to subdivide this into two groups. One would be single family home builders, right? For a single family home developer, the project has to be Energy Star certified, which would get them $2,500 per unit tax credit. And if it's zero energy ready home, which is a Department of Energy program, you are eligible for $5,000 per unit tax credit. Single family home builders do not have to meet prevailing wages. So, it's straightforward for them as long as they are interested in pursuing Energy Star. Now, for multifamily, again, $2,500 for Energy Star, $5,000 for zero energy ready, if they're meeting the prevailing wage requirements. And if they do not meet that, the $2,500 drops down to $500 for Energy Star, and then the $5,000 would drop down to $1,000 for the zero energy program.
Okay. How difficult, challenging, when do you get started? Because this is a lot of changes that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we, like, in terms of, I have a client that is building 800 townhomes in southern Louisiana. I don't know, I'm making this up. They've already broken ground.
Mm-hmm.
Do we start looking at it now? Are we too late? Are we too early? Where do we fit? I just want to make sure everybody that's watching this and that's going to be listening afterwards, because it'll be on my podcast, and then you can watch the playback as well on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. I want to make sure everybody understands when to bring in a specialist.
Mm-hmm. It's now more important than ever for energy professionals, for certified hearse raters to be involved in the design phase.
Okay.
And this is again especially true with Energy Star certification. When a project goes through the certification process, there are certain checklists that have to be completed during the design phase prior to the construction starting.
Mm-hmm.
So once the construction begins, there's a good chance we are probably too late to certify that project and then lose out on the tax credit. So get us involved. Have us review design plans and make sure that all of the items on the design review checklist have been complied with.
So I know a lot of people that are already in process. It's almost like they miss out. Is that fair? Because most of these buildings are coming online in 2023, they've already started.
That's exactly the case, and that's our experience speaking with builders all over the country. There are projects that are already in place. Now, the ones that are in the design phase or almost about to break ground, we are still trying to expedite the process. But a lot of them, where the buildings are almost completed, but the units won't be leased until 2023, they do lose out on the credit. Yeah.
Completely.
Completely, yeah. The only good news that I can take from this is the fact that 45L is extended through 2032, right?
Good.
Yeah, exactly. So at least this is a wake-up call for all of the builders to start looking at Energy Star.
Okay, so when they're get us involved, or from like ours involved on the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as they start planning, designing, where as soon as they start looking at property, like land.
Yeah, I would say as soon as they're working on the design aspect of things is when we need to be involved. We need the plans to verify and make sure that the components that are being designed are in compliance with Energy Star.
Okay.
And eventually zero energy ready if the client is interested to go that way.
Perfect. All right. So Imran, I just had a question come in. Where does the credit go to? So I think what they're referring to is it for the builder, the developer? What if I'm a contractor and I'm doing the work? Do I get the credit? Who gets the credit?
That's a good question. So the credit applies to a developer or a builder who has basis during construction. So they should have ownership during construction.
Okay.
And they end up leasing or selling these units individually to the end user. So a general contractor who's hired by a builder would not be able to qualify for the credit.
Okay.
Yeah. Nor would a company that does have ownership during construction but ends up selling the entire property to another business entity, they wouldn't be able to take the credit either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a builder, I build it out, and then I sell it to an investment group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Yes.
The investment group doesn't get it either.
That's correct, because they did not have basis during construction.
Wow. Okay. All right. And this is the 45L is a tax credit. So I just had a question come up that I'm leading with. What if they don't have enough tax liability to offset the credit? Is it a use it or lose it? I think what they're referring to is there a carry forward schedule?
There is a carry forward aspect to this. I think you can carry forward for 20 years.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. And then is this tied? Are there state credits also for 45? 45L is just the federal
It's
side.
federal tax credit. Yes, sir.
Yeah. State incentives across the country have different ones separate. That's not the point of this conversation, obviously.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. Imran, thank you again for joining.
Sure.
I know this was an insane amount of information that was just covered. Ultimately, on 179D, correct me if I'm wrong in understanding this, Imran, there's the potential to get between 50 cents to $5 per square foot additional deduction. This is for either whether you own the property or you're the architectural or engineering firm that's principally responsible for the design, and it's a nonprofit or government entity. You can have them allocate anywhere from 50 cents to $5 per square foot deduction, if it qualifies, obviously, back to you as an additional deduction. 45L, you can get, it's still through the end of the year, $2,000 per unit. Starting next year, it's between, did you say $500 to
$500 to $5,000?
$500 to $5,000, and that's a credit. That's exciting. That's really exciting. And I say that kind of like trying to keep my excitement down because I don't want it to start jumping up because the camera will move and it'll get all messed up. But in any case, that's great. It's great news. Imran, as far as your background, and this is not scripted, what is, I know with all your letters, give us some insight into what everything means. Your designations and certifications, because that's important for people to understand that when you're looking to do this, you have a builder, designer, developer, you have an architectural engineering firm, whoever it is, you want to work with the people that are qualified. I've known Imran since 2010, and I don't know anybody else that is as qualified as he is. So give a background of your certifications. And
sure. And I'll focus on, what's required. So I'm a professional engineer, and that's a requirement to certify 179D projects. And I'm also an Energy Star certified HERS rater, both in the single family and the multifamily projects. And so that's a requirement now for 45L. So
phenomenal. Okay.
So we are the qualified certifiers for both studies.
Source Advisor is now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Phenomenal. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. Again, this is going to be a playback. It'll be available on YouTube. It'll be available on LinkedIn and Twitter. It will be moved over to my podcast. So you should see that coming out soon on Showcase Broadcast Studios. Share this information with others that you know are in the industry that could benefit from these incentives coming out next year. It's going to be incredible. And from what I'm hearing, a lot of firms are going to look to use this and benefit from it, so they can continue to build and develop and focus on energy efficiencies throughout the country. Thank you again, Imran, and thank you everyone for joining. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks. Bye.
Be well, everyone.